Hi everyone. In today's video, I'm going to go through factorizing non-monic trinomials. So this time we're looking at trinomials, quadratics, which have a coefficient there of the x squared, and it's not equal to 1. So non-monic means that it's not 1. Okay, so and what we're going to need to do in order to do this is we need to use, we're going to use grouping. Now, I know that some of you in the past might have used sort of this crisscross method, but today we're going to go through the use of grouping. It's a little bit more robust. Now, let's just do a little bit of a starter. Now, we've got this non-monic quadratic, which is 4x squared minus 4x minus 15. And similar to before, we were sort of like we needed two things to multiply to give this value. Well, we don't use that for non-monic, because of course what it is, it's actually this thing times this thing, which is 4 times minus 15, which is minus 60. We want two numbers which are going to multiply to give that, but they're also going to add to give still this middle value, this minus 4, the coefficient of x. So we want two things which add to give minus 4, but this time it's actually they multiply to give the product of a and c, which is the first coefficient and the coefficient, or the constant term. So 4 times minus 15 is minus 60. So in this case, let's just talk you through the process. Well, what we're actually doing is we're basically splitting, the idea is we're splitting this term up into two terms, so that way we can use grouping. You can only use grouping when you've got your sort of four terms. So as you can see here, what we've done is when we find those two magical numbers, in this case, minus 10 times 6 is minus 60, minus 10 plus 6 is negative 4. So we've found our two numbers. So now what we've done is we actually break up this minus 4x into minus 10x plus 6x. So as you can see, nothing's changed. That's still going to be minus 4x. But now we've done that, we can do grouping. So as you can see, we've taken out 2x as a common factor. What goes inside the brackets? Well, that would be 2x times 2x is 4x squared minus 5. And of course, if you see a minus 2x minus 5 there, it's a pretty good hint that we're going to get 2x minus 5 there. Okay, so that's going to be 6x, that's going to be minus 15. And as you can see, they both have 2x minus 5 as a common factor. And what's left over is 2x plus 3. So that's our process. We've got to find those factors, find the two magical numbers, and then go ahead and group them. So that's sort of the process. Now, look, there's a little bit of theory here, and that just sort of outlines exactly what I've sort of said, that you know, we've basically got to get A and C, where A and C is like, it's the coefficient of x squared and the constant term. We've got to multiply those together, and then we've got to work out the two numbers which multiply to give, in this case, would be minus 90, and they add to give the middle term, the coefficient of x. So let's just get straight into it. Before we do that, though, let's just build our understanding of how we do this. So here you can see all of these quadratics are in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. So as you can see, a in this case, this would be ax squared. That would be a. A would be 6. B would be 13, and c would be equal to 6. So as you can see, a times c is the coefficient, 36. 6 times 6. 6 times 6 is 36, and we want two numbers that add to give b. Now, add to give b is 13. So as you can see, what two numbers would multiply to give 36, but they also add to give 13? Well, that's 9 and 4. So we need to do this process really before we can understand how to factorize and group them. So this time, let's go. We've got 8 times 4, which is 32. And as you can see, we want two numbers which multiply to give 32. Now, of course, when you've got that, we can sort of do the factors of 32. We've got 1 and 32, we've got 2 and 16. We've got 8 and 4, and that's about it. And as you can see there, that well, what sort of combination of these are going to add to give 18? Well, if I add those two, we're going to get 18. So that's going to be 2 and 16. Let's do the same thing. We've got 12 and minus 6, so they've got it. When we multiply those together, we want two things which multiply to give minus 72. 12 times minus 6. And of course, now what we've got to do is they've got to add to give this coefficient of this middle term, which is they're going to add to give 1. So if you think about it, how do I get 1? Well, we've got minus 8 and 9. If I multiply those together, it gives us minus 72. Add them together, it gives us 1. Okay, so let's keep going. We've got to get faster at this. So we've got the product of that is minus 60. Let's do the product of this. 21 times 4 is 84. 15 times 2 is 30. So we want to come up with two numbers that multiply to give minus 60 and they add to give minus 11. Well, let's have a look. 1, 60, 2, 30. 4 times 15 will give us 60. So I'm looking at, I reckon that this one would be useful. So as you can see, we've got a negative value. So that means that we have to be minus 15 and positive 4, because if I add 4 to negative 15, I'm going to get my middle term here, which is minus 11. We'll keep going. 84. Well, we want to get minus 20. So I reckon this one you'd have to go, or 84, we could go 1 and 84. We could go 2 times 42. As it turns out, we could go 4 times 16 is 84. So that to me, some of these numbers you'll need to spend some time to sort of come up with the factors. But as you can see, we've got 4 times 16 is 84. So what we want, but of course we've got here, 6 times 14 is 84. So what we've got is we've got minus 6 times minus 14 is actually positive 84, and minus 6 minus 14 is going to give us minus 20. Okay, and the last one, we've got two numbers which multiply to give 30, and they add to give negative 13. So we've got 1 and 30, we've got 2 and 15. There you go. I reckon we can add those two together, chuck a negative in front of one of them or both of them to get that. So what can we do? What else have we got? We've got 2 and 15. We've also got 10 and 3. So how can we we want both of them to be negative, because of course they have to multiply to give this positive 30. So if I throw a negative out there, negative 10 and negative 3. So what does that mean for this? Well, it means that what we're doing is we're actually changing this middle term, and we'll go through some examples in a moment. We're changing this middle term to minus 10x. There's minus 10, and we're also changing it to minus 3x. And then we can go ahead and do our grouping like so. All right, so now let's get into it. So here's our non-monic trinomials. Let's think about this process. So first of all, we can write that A is equal to 6, B is equal to 19, and C is equal to 10. Well, we want two numbers that are going to multiply to give A times C, 6 times 10, which is 60. And they're going to add to give the middle term, 19, the coefficient of the middle term. So we could go 1 and 60, and we could go 2 and 30, and we could go 3 times 20, 4 times 15, and and I reckon we've got it there. We could also do 10 times 6, but as you can see, 4 and 15, we can get that, add those together to get 19, and we can also get those two terms that multiply to give 60. So there you go. What we're doing is, the first step is we have broken that up into two terms, that middle term, 15x plus 4x plus 10. Now what we're going to do is we've got to factorize that. Let's factorize, or let's group those together, find the highest common factor. What's the highest common factor there? Well, 3x goes into that. That's the highest common factor. So that's why factorizing at the start is so important. 2x plus 3 times 5 is 15, so 2x plus 5. And look, if you get a 2x plus 5 here, this is what you really want to find. I'm just going to write it straight away, 2x plus 5. And what would go out the front to make this true? Well, it would be 2 at the front. Now that you can see that we've got a common factor of 2x plus 5, let's put that out the front. And what goes next? 3x plus 2. And now you can see there, we have factorized. So these ones take a little bit longer. Technically, you're always finding a times c, but if I had x squared plus 7x plus 12, well, what we're doing, the coefficient of that is always 1. So that was 1 times 12. So we just wanted usually this, but now we have to multiply the coefficient of x squared, which is no longer 1. So that's really the only change, but this time I guess we're using grouping. All right, let's try this one. First of all, a times c is negative 72, so we want two things that multiply to give negative 72, and they add to give the middle term, which is 6. Once again, it's about finding those factors, 1 and 72, 2 times 36. Just worry about the positives now. We've got 3 times 24 would give us 72. 4 times 18. 4 times 18. And also 12 times 6 would also give us 72. So I'm guessing that there's no way you can sort of add and subtract these to get 6. So in actual fact, we're looking at 12 and 6. Now, of course, I could put a 12 here and I can put a 6 here, but of course, that's not going to give us a negative value. So one of these has to be negative. Well, which one is it? Well, we want a positive value when you add them together. So I'm going to make that 12 minus 6 is 6. 12 times minus 6 is minus 72. So we found our two magical numbers. So step 2 is, once you've got that, you need to break that middle term up. 6x becomes 12x minus 6x minus 8. That doesn't go anywhere. And now let's do grouping. Let's take out the biggest or highest common factor of those, which in this case is 3x. What goes inside the brackets? That would be 3x, and then that would be 4 times 3x is 12x. Once you've done that, that's really what you want to see. It's always going to work because, of course, we've found our factors. So if I put a 3x plus 4 in there instantly, that should be your thinking. What goes outside here? I've got a positive sign here, but what goes outside here to make that true? Well, that would be minus 2, wouldn't it? And as you can see now that we've got the highest common factor of 3x plus 4. And what can I do? Grab that 3x, take away 2. If I multiply that by 3x plus 4, I get the same expression. And that's now factorized. Okay, so look, a slightly different method here. Takes a little bit longer. Now what I'd like you to do is just to pause this video now and to try these. If you can get these, once you get to do one of these, has sort of become quite familiar. So I'm just going to pause this now. I'll get you to pause this and have a go at these, please. All right, so hopefully you've had a go at those, and as you can see, I have done my working. And look, try to mimic this sort of thinking. You really can't just do these without showing any working. So first of all, I want two numbers which multiply to give 6 times 3, which is 18. So those two numbers I've just listed, the factors of 18, 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 6 and 3. Well, there's no way I can add 6 and 3 or any negative combination of those to get 11, but in this case we've got 2 and 9, and as you can see they're both positive. 2 times 9 is 18, 2 plus 9 is 11. So what I'm doing is I'm splitting that up, that middle term in 11x into 2x and 9x, and as you can see there, I'm then grouping those. I'm grouping those together. The highest common factor is 3x times 2x plus 3. When I get 2x plus 3, I really want that over the other side. So as you can see, we've got 1 times 2x plus 3, and then bringing those together as the highest common factor of 2x plus 3, that multiplies to give multiplies to 3x plus 1, and we are done. And over here, we've got to multiply these two terms here, 8 and minus 3. That gives us negative 24. So I need two numbers which are going to multiply to give negative 4 and add to give 10. I've listed the factors of 24. You should be thinking about those factors. Well, we've got 2 and 12, 3 and 8. No way we're going to get 10 out of 3 and 8. 4 and 6 you could, but of course not if we've got one of them has to be negative, so that's not going to work. The only way we can do that is if I've got 12 times minus 2, and that equals minus 24. 12 minus 2 is equal to 10, yes. So now we can break that up. There's our two magical numbers. Do grouping, taking out a highest common factor for these, which is 4x times 2x plus 3. When I get this 2x plus 3 here, I'm really looking for that again. So if I was to take multiply that by negative 1, we are going to get our answer. So as you can see, 2x plus 3 is the highest common factor. If I multiply that by 4x minus 1, there you go, we've now factorized. Okay, so look, definitely need to practice these once you get the hang of it. So we've been through about 4 or 5 of them. What I'd like you to do now is to please turn to page 378, try your questions from 5D, and make sure, look, start from the beginning, work your way through. Please just stick with these. Do questions 2, 3, and 4, and see if you can get through as much of that in the rest of this lesson. All right, thanks everyone. I'll see you in class.